Mother's Day morning in my kitchen. Daughter-in-law Chloe hands me a glass of thick, green avocado juice with an unusually sweet smile. Happy Mother's Day, Karin. Is the juice good? But before I can taste it, her own mother Patricia grabs it from my hands, laughing about how thirsty she is, and drinks it down completely. I watch Chloe's face transform from anticipation to pure terror. Actually, I'm not sure how it tastes, I tell her calmly. Your mother drank it instead. Chloe's face drains white, and she bolts from the house. Something was terribly wrong. The way Chloe had fled my house like the devil himself was chasing her told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't about hurt feelings or embarrassment. This was about something much darker. I hurried outside after her, my 67-year-old legs moving faster than they had in years. I found Chloe hunched over my prize-winning rose bushes, retching violently. Her whole body shook as she vomited, and between the awful sounds, I could hear her sobbing. Chloe, what on earth is wrong with you? I demanded, grabbing her shoulder. What was in that juice? Before she could answer, a terrible crash came from inside my house. Patricia's scream pierced the morning air, followed by an even more horrifying sound, the unmistakable thud of a body hitting my kitchen floor. We both ran back inside to find Patricia convulsing on the linoleum, her eyes rolled back, foam bubbling from her mouth. Her entire body jerked and twitched in ways that made my stomach turn. My son David dropped his coffee mug and immediately started dialing 911 while I knelt beside Patricia, trying to hold her steady. What did you put in that juice? I screamed at Chloe, who stood frozen in the doorway like a deer in headlights. What did you put in it? Chloe's face had gone completely white. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she stammered. I didn't know she would. Oh God, what have I done? The paramedics arrived within minutes, but those minutes felt like hours. Patricia's seizures gradually subsided, but she remained unconscious as they worked on her. I watched them check her pulse, examine her pupils, ask rapid-fire questions about what she had consumed. She drank an avocado juice, I told them, my voice surprisingly steady despite the chaos. My daughter-in-law made it. One paramedic looked sharply at Chloe. Ma'am, what exactly was in this juice? Chloe completely broke down. Between her hysterical sobs, the truth came pouring out like water from a burst dam. Sleeping pills, she gasped. I crushed up sleeping pills and put them in the avocado juice. But it wasn't for her. It was supposed to be for Karin. The silence that followed was deafening. David stared at his wife as if she had grown a second head. The paramedics exchanged glances that spoke volumes about what they had just heard. How many pills? The paramedic asked urgently. 12, Chloe whispered. 12 Ambien tablets. But I looked it up online, and with Karin's heart condition and her age, it would have looked natural. Like she just died peacefully in her sleep. My knees nearly gave out. 12 sleeping pills. More than enough to kill someone my age, especially with my recent heart troubles. The realization hit me like a sledgehammer. My own daughter-in-law, the woman I had welcomed into my family 5 years ago, the mother of my grandchildren, had tried to murder me. David's face had gone from white to red to purple. Are you telling me, he said in a voice I had never heard before, that you tried to poison my mother on Mother's Day? Chloe couldn't even look at him. David, you don't understand. She's always in the way. The inheritance from your father, this house, all her savings, it's supposed to be ours. Our children's future depends on it. She's old, she's had a good life, and I just thought. You thought what? David roared. You thought you'd commit murder? As the paramedics prepared to transport Patricia to the hospital, I found myself studying Chloe with new eyes. How long had she been planning this? How long had she been looking at me and seeing only dollar signs and an obstacle to remove? The woman who had hugged me at Christmas, who had brought my grandchildren to visit every Sunday, who had called me mom for the past 5 years. She had been plotting my death. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain I had ever experienced. This wasn't just about money or inheritance. This was about trust, about family, about the very foundation of everything I thought I knew about my life. Chloe, I said quietly, as the paramedics wheeled Patricia toward the ambulance. How long have you been planning to kill me? She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. 6 months, she whispered. Ever since David mentioned updating your will. 6 months. Half a year of smiles and family dinners and birthday celebrations, all while she plotted my murder. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not fear, but determination. If Chloe thought she could destroy my family and get away with it, she was about to learn just how wrong she could be. The hospital waiting room became our makeshift interrogation chamber. While Patricia fought for her life in the emergency room, David and I sat with Chloe, demanding the truth about everything. What we discovered made my blood run cold. I knew something was off, David admitted, running his hands through his hair. The past few months, Chloe kept asking when you might, pass away. She'd bring up your age, your heart condition, how tired you seemed lately. I thought she was just worried about you. But now you know she was planning my murder, I finished grimly. Chloe sat hunched over, no longer the composed woman who had handed me that poisoned juice just hours earlier. David had taken her purse to keep her from calling anyone, and when he started going through it, we discovered things that made the situation even worse. Karin, look at this. David pulled out several bank statements I had never seen before. These are from your savings account. Look at these withdrawals. I studied the papers with growing horror. Someone had been taking money from my account regularly for the past 6 months. $200 here, $500 there, sometimes $1,000 at a time. The signatures looked like mine, but I knew I had never authorized these withdrawals. Chloe, I said, my voice deadly calm, you've been stealing from me. It was going to be ours anyway, she said defensively. You're old. You don't need all that money. Our kids need college funds. We have a mortgage, and you just sit on all this wealth like some kind of dragon hoarding gold. So you decided to steal it, and then kill me to cover your tracks? I wasn't covering tracks. I was securing our future. David found something else in her purse that made my heart stop. A small notebook filled with handwritten plans. Chloe's careful script detailed everything. The best times to visit me alone, which medications would be hardest to detect, how to make my death appear natural. Listen to this, David read, his voice shaking with rage. May 15th. Karin seemed weak today after taking her vitamins. Need to increase dosage slowly. June 3rd. Researched heart attack symptoms in elderly women. June 20th. Practiced signature on checks, getting better. July 4th. Neighbor's cat died after testing formula. Need to adjust ratio for human weight. I felt the blood drain from my face. You killed Mrs. Henderson's cat? It was just practice, Chloe protested. I needed to make sure the formula worked. You're insane, David breathed. You're actually insane. The notebook contained pages of detailed planning. Chloe had researched my medical history, calculated dosages based on my weight and age, and even planned when to discover my body to make her grief appear genuine. She had choreographed my murder down to the minute, but the most chilling entry was dated just 3 days ago. Mother's Day perfect opportunity. Patricia visiting provides alibi and witness to natural-seeming death. After funeral, can claim grief and sell house quickly. David won't suspect anything. She had planned to use her own mother as an alibi for my murder. The woman who had just nearly died because of Chloe's poison was supposed to be the unwitting witness to make the whole thing seem legitimate. There's more, David said grimly, pulling out several printed emails. She's been corresponding with someone named Marcus about this. The emails made my skin crawl. Marcus, whoever he was, had been encouraging Chloe's plans and helping her research methods. Their correspondence read like a how-to guide for murdering elderly family members. Marcus writes here, David continued, that the key is patience and making it look like natural decline. He says he's helped 3 other people with similar situations, and nobody ever suspected anything. Who is Marcus? I demanded. Chloe's silence spoke volumes. But David had already figured it out. He had found text messages between them that revealed the truth. Marcus wasn't just her murder consultant. He was her secret boyfriend. "You're having an affair," David said flatly. "All this time, you've been cheating on me and planning to kill my mother so you could run off with some stranger and my inheritance." "It's not like that," Chloe protested. "Marcus understands me. He knows what it's like to be trapped in a marriage with someone who puts their mother before their wife." The betrayal just kept getting deeper. Not only had Chloe been planning my murder and stealing my money, she had been unfaithful to my son while doing it. She had been living a completely double life, playing the role of devoted wife and daughter-in-law while plotting to destroy our entire family. I thought about all the times I had defended Chloe to my friends when they made snide comments about young wives marrying older men with money. I had insisted that she loved David for himself, that she was a good mother to my grandchildren, that she genuinely cared about our family. I had been such a fool. "How long?" David asked quietly. "How long have you been with this Marcus person?" 8 months, Chloe admitted. So, even before she started planning my murder, she had been cheating on my son. The poison plot hadn't been born from sudden greed. It had been carefully cultivated by 2 people who saw our family as nothing more than a source of easy money. Looking at David's devastated face, I realized that Chloe hadn't just tried to kill me. She had systematically destroyed my son's life, betrayed his trust, stolen from his mother, and planned to leave him grieving and alone while she disappeared with another man and his inheritance. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. But as I sat there in that hospital waiting room, surrounded by evidence of Chloe's treachery, I felt something unexpected, not just anger, but determination. Chloe had made one crucial mistake. She had failed to kill me, which meant I was still here to fight back. And I had no intention of being anyone's victim. When Patricia finally woke up 6 hours later, what she told us changed everything I thought I knew about the woman who had tried to murder me. Patricia's voice was weak but clear as she beckoned me closer to her hospital bed. David and I leaned in while Chloe waited in the hallway, banned from the room after the nurses learned what had happened. "Karin," Patricia whispered, "I need to tell you something about my daughter. This isn't the first time." My heart sank. "What do you mean?" "My mother, Chloe's grandmother, died 2 years ago. Very suddenly. Chloe had visited her that afternoon with homemade soup, said she wanted to spend time with Grandma Rose. 3 hours later, Rose was dead." David gripped my hand tightly. "Patricia, what are you saying?" "I'm saying my mother was healthy as a horse before that visit. 86 years old and still gardening every day. Then Chloe shows up with soup, and by evening, Rose is gone. Heart failure," the doctor said. "Natural causes." "You think Chloe killed her own grandmother?" I asked. Though even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were true. "I know she did." Patricia reached into her purse with shaky hands and pulled out her phone. "I've been saving these text messages for 2 years, too scared to show anyone." The text she showed us made my blood freeze. Message after message from Chloe, sent in the weeks after her grandmother's death, bragging about inheriting Rose's house and savings. But the most damning one was sent just 3 days after the funeral. "Got rid of the obstacle. Now I can focus on bigger targets." She sent this to someone named Marcus, Patricia explained. "I found out about him after Rose died. Chloe had been bringing him around, introducing him as a friend, but I knew better. This Marcus person has been in her ear for almost 2 years, encouraging her to see family members as obstacles instead of people." David was staring at the phone in horror. "She's done this before. She's actually done this before." "There's more," Patricia continued weakly. "After Rose died, neighborhood pets started disappearing. Mrs. Chen's dog, the Wilson family's 2 cats, old Mr. Garcia's parrot. I started noticing Chloe volunteering to pet sit for people, offering to help when they went out of town. She was practicing, I realized, using pets to test her poisons. I found printouts in her room when I visited last month. Pages and pages of research about untraceable substances, how to make deaths look natural. even forums where people discussed theoretical ways to eliminate elderly relatives without getting caught. Patricia showed us photos she had secretly taken of these documents. The level of research was staggering. Chloe had studied everything from plant toxins to prescription drug interactions to household chemicals that could cause fatal reactions in older adults. But this Marcus person, Patricia continued, he's not just encouraging her, he's done this himself. What do you mean? David asked. I did some investigating after Rose died. Marcus's real name is Marcus Bellingham, and his own grandmother died under suspicious circumstances 18 months ago. So did his great-aunt 6 months later. Both left him money. Both deaths ruled natural causes. The pattern was becoming sickeningly clear. Marcus wasn't just Chloe's boyfriend. He was her mentor in murder. He had taught her how to kill family members for inheritance money, and together they had turned it into a systematic operation. I printed out some of their email exchanges, Patricia said, pulling folded papers from her purse. They're planning more than just your death, Karin. They have a whole list. The emails Patricia showed us revealed a conspiracy that went far beyond one murder plot. Marcus and Chloe had identified several elderly people in our area with significant assets and family members who might be willing to speed up their inheritance. They had been mapping out targets, researching family dynamics, and planning a series of murders that would look completely unrelated. My name was at the top of their list, but I wasn't the only one. They had detailed profiles of 6 other elderly people in our community, complete with information about their health conditions, family situations, and estimated net worth. They've been studying these people for months, Patricia explained. Going to community center events, church gatherings, anywhere they could observe potential targets and meet their families. So all those times Chloe encouraged me to join the senior center social activities. I began. She was scouting, David finished grimly. The scope of what we were dealing with hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about one woman's greed, or even one murder plot. Chloe and Marcus had created a systematic approach to killing elderly people for money. They had turned murder into a business model. Patricia, I said carefully, why didn't you go to the police after your mother died? I tried, she admitted, tears in her eyes. But what proof did I have? An elderly woman dying of apparent heart failure isn't unusual. The text messages could be interpreted as grief or shock. And Chloe is my daughter. Who wants to believe their own child is a murderer? But you suspected enough to save evidence. A mother knows, Patricia said simply. I knew something was wrong, even if I couldn't prove it. I kept hoping I was paranoid, that grief was making me see things that weren't there. But when I saw Chloe's face today after I drank that juice, I knew I had been right all along. David was quiet for a long moment, processing everything we had learned. When he finally spoke, his voice was filled with a determination I hadn't heard since he was a teenager. We're going to stop them, he said firmly. Both of them. We're going to make sure they never hurt anyone else. How? I asked. Patricia's right. What proof do we really have? Even with the notebook and emails, a good lawyer could argue it was all fantasy or research for a book. Then we get proof, David said. Real, undeniable proof. David, that's too dangerous, Patricia protested. If they realize you're onto them, they already tried to kill my mother, David replied. They've murdered at least one person, maybe more. They're planning to murder others. Someone has to stop them, and it might as well be us. I looked at my son with new respect. 5 years of marriage to Chloe had changed him, made him more cautious and less decisive. But faced with the truth about his wife's crimes, the David I remembered from his youth was finally emerging again. What did you have in mind? I asked. The next few days became a careful choreography of investigation and deception. While Chloe believed we were all too shocked and traumatized to think clearly, David and I were methodically gathering evidence that would put her and Marcus behind bars forever. Our first discovery came in my own kitchen, and it nearly made me sick with rage. Mom, when did you last refill your vitamins? David asked, examining the bottles on my counter. About 3 weeks ago, I told him. Why? He twisted off the cap of my daily multivitamin container and poured several pills into his palm. These don't look right. The color's different, and they feel too light. We drove immediately to the pharmacy where I had filled the prescription. The pharmacist confirmed our worst fears. The pills in my bottle were not vitamins. They were carefully manufactured lookalikes, containing small doses of arsenic compounds. "Ma'am," the pharmacist said gravely, "if you'd been taking these for much longer, you would have suffered severe organ damage, possibly death." So Chloe hadn't just planned to poison me with that avocado juice. She had been slowly poisoning me for months, building up toxic levels in my system while making me appear to be naturally declining from age and health problems. That explains everything, I realized. The fatigue, the nausea, the memory issues I've been having. I thought it was just getting older, but she was literally poisoning me. David's jaw was clenched so tight I worried he might crack a tooth. "How long?" he asked the pharmacist. "Based on the concentration we're seeing here, I'd estimate 3 to 4 months of regular consumption, maybe longer at lower doses." 3 to 4 months. All those times I had complained about feeling tired or queasy, Chloe had been there with sympathetic smiles and suggestions that I should take it easy, maybe consider moving to assisted living where people could look after me better. She had been causing my symptoms while pretending to care about them. Back at home, we searched my house from top to bottom and found evidence of Chloe's long-term planning everywhere. My regular coffee had been replaced with decaffeinated versions mixed with mild sedatives. The moisturizer in my bathroom contained chemicals that caused skin irritation and made me look sickly. Even my reading glasses had been replaced with a stronger prescription that gave me headaches and made me seem confused. "She's been systematically undermining your health and mental state," David realized, "making you appear frail and confused so when you died, everyone would just think it was natural." But the most damning evidence came when we searched the guest room where Chloe had been staying during her recent frequent visits. Hidden behind her makeup bag, we found a detailed journal that documented everything. Page after page described her long-term project, her clinical term for slowly poisoning me to death. She had recorded my reactions to different substances, noted which symptoms were most convincing, and calculated exactly how much poison she could give me without triggering medical intervention. The entries read like a scientist's lab notes, completely devoid of human emotion or recognition that she was torturing a living person. To her, I was nothing more than an experiment in murder. June 5th. David read aloud, his voice shaking. Subject showing increased fatigue and confusion. Appetite decreased. Need to maintain current dosage for 2 more weeks before increasing. Must appear gradual. June 20th. Subject complained of memory issues during family dinner. David looked concerned but accepted explanation of normal aging. Perfect cover. July 2nd. Increased dosage slightly. Subject stayed in bed most of day. Suggested to David she might need home health aides soon. He's starting to accept that she's declining. Page after page chronicled my suffering, as if it were a business transaction. But worse than the clinical detachment was the clear evidence of premeditation and planning. This wasn't a crime of passion or even simple greed. This was calculated. Systematic torture leading to murder. David found her laptop hidden under the guest room bed, and what we discovered there completed the picture. Hundreds of saved emails between Chloe and Marcus, detailing not just plans for my murder but their entire relationship and future crimes. Marcus had been coaching her through every step of the process. He provided detailed instructions on poison ratios, suggested ways to establish alibis, and even recommended how to behave during the grieving process to avoid suspicion. But most importantly, we found evidence of their broader criminal enterprise. They had detailed profiles of 14 elderly people across 3 states, complete with financial information, family dynamics, and murder timelines. They've been doing this for 2 years, David realized, scrolling through file after file. Not just planning, actually doing it. There are at least 6 people who died under suspicious circumstances, and Marcus was connected to all of them. The laptop contained confirmation that Chloe's grandmother Rose was indeed murdered, along with evidence of at least 5 other killings. Marcus had a whole system worked out. Identify targets, cultivate relationships with their families, slowly poison the victims to create apparent natural decline, then deliver a final fatal dose that looked like natural death from pre-existing conditions. They had stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars and ruined countless families while making murder look like misfortune. "We need to contact the FBI," David said. "This is way bigger than local police can handle." "Not yet," I told him. "If we turn over this evidence now, Chloe will know we found it. She'll destroy anything else, and Marcus will disappear. We need to catch them red-handed." "Mom, it's too dangerous." "More dangerous than letting them kill me and move on to their next victim?" I asked pointedly. "David, look at this list. They're planning to murder Mrs. Rodriguez next month, and then the Petersons in September. How many people are going to die while we're playing it safe?" David stared at the names on their target list. People we knew, friends from the community, folks who had never done anything wrong except grow old with assets that attracted predators. "What do you want to do?" he asked finally. "I want to give Chloe exactly what she thinks she wants," I said. "I want her to believe she's finally succeeded in killing me. And I want to record every word when she confesses to Marcus about how she did it." 3 days later, I put our plan into action. Chloe had been staying at a hotel since Patricia's poisoning, claiming she needed space to process the trauma. What she was really doing was meeting with Marcus to plan their next move and figure out how to salvage their scheme. I called her Tuesday evening, making my voice weak and shaky. "Chloe, dear, I think I'm in trouble. I've been feeling so sick since Mother's Day, and I think I might have drunk some of that juice after all, before Patricia took it. Could you come over? I don't want to worry David unnecessarily." She arrived within 30 minutes, and I could see the anticipation in her eyes despite her attempts to look concerned. David was hidden in the next room with recording equipment we had borrowed from a friend who worked in security, along with cameras positioned to capture everything. I had taken acting classes in college, and I put those skills to work now. I appeared weak, nauseated, and frightened, exactly what Chloe expected from someone dying of slow poisoning. "Oh, Karin," she said, rushing to my side with perfectly feigned concern. "You look terrible. What's been happening?" "I keep getting sicker," I told her, my voice barely above a whisper, "and I keep thinking about Mother's Day, about that juice. I thought Patricia drank all of it, but I remember now. I did taste it first, just a tiny sip." Chloe's eyes lit up, though she tried to hide it behind worry. "A tiny sip probably wouldn't hurt you, though." "But what if it would?" I asked weakly. "What if whatever made Patricia so sick is making me sick too? Chloe, what was really in that juice?" I watched her face carefully as she processed this opportunity. Here I was, apparently dying from her poison, and I was asking her to confess. The temptation to finally tell someone about her brilliant plan was clearly overwhelming. "Karin," she said slowly, "what I'm about to tell you might shock you, but I think you deserve to know the truth since you might be. Since I might be dying?" I finished. "Yes." She sat down beside me, and her whole demeanor changed. Gone was the concerned daughter-in-law, replaced by someone cold and calculating. That juice contained crushed sleeping pills, 12 of them, to be precise. Sleeping pills. "But why would you?" "Because you were supposed to drink it, not my mother," she said matter-of-factly. "You were supposed to die peacefully in your sleep, surrounded by family on Mother's Day. It would have been beautiful, really." The casual way she discussed murdering me was chilling, but I forced myself to stay in character. "You wanted to kill me?" "I wanted to set you free," she corrected, as if she were doing me a favor. "Karin, you're old, you're sick, and you're just taking up space. Your money could give David and our children a real future, instead of just sitting in bank accounts, waiting for you to die naturally." "But the sleeping pills were just the backup plan," she continued, clearly enjoying the chance to finally brag about her scheme. "I've been preparing for months. Those vitamins you take every morning? I replace them with special pills that contain just enough poison to make you weak and confused. The coffee I've been making you, the moisturizer you use, even your reading glasses. everything designed to make you appear like you were naturally declining. I let my eyes widen in horror, which wasn't difficult since hearing her describe my torture so casually was genuinely horrifying. "You've been poisoning me for months?" "Slowly and carefully," she said proudly. "I researched everything. The right dosages, the right timeline, the right symptoms. It took real skill to make it look natural." "But why? I thought you loved our family." Chloe laughed, a sound completely devoid of warmth. "Love doesn't pay for college tuition or mortgage payments, Karin. You're sitting on almost $2 million while David and I struggle with bills. It's not fair. What about your mother? You nearly killed her too." "That was an accident," Chloe said dismissively. "Mom wasn't supposed to drink the juice. But honestly, it worked out fine. Now she's too traumatized and medicated to think clearly about what happened. She'll never be a reliable witness." The cruelty of using her own mother's near death as a strategic advantage made my stomach turn. But I needed her to keep talking. "Have you done this before?" I asked weakly. "My grandmother Rose," she admitted without hesitation. "Though that was messier. I didn't have Marcus helping me then." "Marcus? My partner in all this?" she said, pulling out her phone. "He's taught me everything I know about making deaths look natural. He's waiting outside, actually. We're supposed to disappear together after you die, and David inherits everything." She showed me text messages between her and Marcus, from just an hour earlier, discussing my apparent condition and their timeline for leaving town. "We've done this 6 times now in different states," she continued. "Elderly people with assets and families who won't ask too many questions. The key is patience and research. Most people are too sentimental to see family members as business opportunities." 6 times? You've murdered 6 people? 7, counting Rose. And you'll make 8. She checked her phone again. "Though honestly, I'm surprised you're still conscious. Based on the arsenic levels you should have built up over 4 months, plus whatever you got from the juice, you should be in a coma by now." "Maybe I'm stronger than you thought," I suggested. "Or maybe I miscalculated the dosage," she mused. "No matter. If the poisoning doesn't finish you tonight, I'll just have to get creative." She pulled a small vial from her purse. "This is concentrated nicotine extract, completely undetectable in someone with your apparent symptoms. 1 injection, and you'll go into cardiac arrest within minutes." "You're going to inject me with poison?" "I'm going to put you out of your misery," she corrected. "And then comfort David through his grief while we plan our new life together." She was preparing the syringe when David burst into the room, followed immediately by police officers who had been positioned outside. "Chloe Morrison, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and fraud," the lead officer announced as they handcuffed her. The look on Chloe's face when she realized she had been trapped was something I would remember forever. Shock, rage, and finally calculation as she tried to figure out how to get out of this situation. "You can't prove anything," she said automatically. "This is just the word of a confused old woman against mine." "Actually," David said, holding up the recording equipment, "we have everything. Your confession to poisoning my mother, your admission to murdering your grandmother, your bragging about killing 6 other people, and your attempt to inject her with nicotine poison while we were recording. Plus," I added, standing up much steadier than I had appeared moments before, "I haven't actually been poisoned recently. We replaced all the substances you'd been giving me weeks ago. So I'm very much alive and very capable of testifying against you." The reality of her situation hit Chloe like a physical blow. She had confessed to multiple murders while being recorded, and been caught red-handed attempting another one. "Where's Marcus?" she demanded. "Already in custody," the police officer informed her. "He was arrested an hour ago at his hotel. Apparently, when he realized the operation was compromised, he tried to throw you under the bus. He's been very cooperative about providing details of your partnership." As they led Chloe away, she turned back to me with pure hatred in her eyes. "You think you've won?" she spat. "You're still going to die alone, and David will still inherit your money." "Maybe," I replied calmly, "but at least I'll die of old age instead of your poison. And David will inherit honestly, without blood on his hands." The next 6 months transformed our lives in ways I never could have imagined. What started as a simple case of attempted murder quickly expanded into a federal investigation that spanned multiple states and involved dozens of victims. Chloe's arrest made national news when the full scope of her and Marcus's crimes became public. The FBI discovered that their network of inheritance murders was even larger than we had realized. Over the past 3 years, they had been responsible for 14 confirmed deaths and 6 attempted murders across 7 states. The investigation revealed a systematic operation that targeted elderly people with significant assets but small families. Marcus had developed a sophisticated method for identifying victims through social media, obituaries, and public records. He would research potential targets for months before making contact through dating sites, community events, or volunteer organizations. Once he identified a suitable victim, he would cultivate relationships with their adult children or grandchildren, eventually introducing them to Chloe as his cousin, friend, or colleague. Together, they would spend months building trust while secretly researching the victim's medical history, financial situation, and family dynamics. The actual murders were carried out through slow poisoning, designed to mimic natural aging and health decline. They had perfected a combination of substances that would cause fatigue, confusion, and apparent organ failure over several months, making the eventual death appear completely natural to grieving families and medical professionals. Patricia's decision to save those text messages after her mother's death proved crucial to the broader investigation. Her evidence led to the exhumation of Rose's body, which confirmed arsenic poisoning. That confirmation allowed investigators to examine other suspicious deaths connected to Marcus and Chloe. One by one, families across the country began to realize that their elderly relatives had been murdered. Harold Chen in Oregon, whose grandmother died after meeting a helpful young woman at church. The Martinez family in Texas, whose grandfather passed away shortly after his new friend's niece started helping with his medications. The Johnson family in Florida, whose aunt died peacefully after months of declining health that began when she started dating a charming man she met at the community center. Each family's story was heartbreakingly similar to ours. A vulnerable elderly person, a new acquaintance who seemed caring and helpful, a gradual decline in health, and a peaceful death that left no one suspicious until years later. The trial was emotionally devastating but ultimately satisfying. Chloe showed no remorse whatsoever, maintaining that her victims were going to die anyway, and she had simply expedited the process while making their deaths serve a useful purpose. Her complete lack of empathy or recognition of wrongdoing made it easier for the jury to recommend the harshest possible sentences. Marcus attempted to portray himself as the mastermind who had manipulated poor, innocent Chloe into participating in his schemes. This strategy backfired spectacularly when prosecutors played recordings of their conversations where Chloe was clearly the more enthusiastic and creative partner in planning murders. In the end, Chloe received life in prison without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder, conspiracy, fraud, and a dozen other charges. Marcus received the death penalty after being convicted of being the primary architect of the murder enterprise. The stolen money was recovered and returned to victims' families, though no amount of restitution could repair the emotional damage they had suffered. For David, the entire experience was transformative but traumatic. Learning that his wife was a serial killer who had been planning to murder his mother while stealing from his family destroyed his ability to trust his own judgment about people. He entered therapy to process not just the betrayal, but his guilt over not recognizing the warning signs sooner. "How did I miss it, Mom?" he asked me repeatedly during those difficult months. "How did I live with her for 5 years and not know she was capable of murder?" "Because you're not a murderer," I told him. "Normal people don't think like killers. You saw what she wanted you to see because you're a good person who assumes other people are basically good too." The divorce proceedings were complicated by the criminal case, but eventually, David was granted full custody of his 2 children. Chloe had shown no interest in maintaining any relationship with them once she realized they couldn't help her legal situation. Explaining to a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old that their mother was in prison for murdering people was one of the hardest things our family ever faced. We decided on age-appropriate honesty, Their mother had made very bad choices that hurt people, and she would be in prison for a long time as a consequence. Patricia moved from California to live closer to us, and surprisingly, we developed a genuine friendship born from shared trauma and survival. She had been carrying guilt about her mother's death for 2 years, and finally, having confirmation and justice helped her begin to heal. "I should have trusted my instincts sooner," she told me one afternoon as we watched David's children play in my backyard. "I knew something was wrong, but I kept telling myself I was being paranoid." "We're both alive," I reminded her. "We survived, and we stopped them from hurting anyone else. That's what matters." My own recovery from months of poisoning took longer than expected. The arsenic had caused damage to my liver and kidneys that required ongoing medical treatment, but my doctors were optimistic about my long-term prognosis. More challenging was the psychological recovery. For months, I couldn't eat or drink anything without wondering if it was safe. I had nightmares about Chloe sneaking into my house to finish what she started. Simple activities like taking my vitamins or drinking coffee became anxiety-inducing ordeals. But gradually, with the support of my family and professional counseling, I began to reclaim my life. The experience had taught me that evil can hide behind familiar faces and that trust, once broken, takes enormous effort to rebuild. But it had also shown me the strength I possessed when my family was threatened and the power of refusing to be a victim. 6 months after Chloe's conviction, David met with me to discuss something that had been weighing on his mind. "Mom," he said, "I want you to know that I understand if you can't trust my judgment about people anymore, after what happened with Chloe." "David," I interrupted, "your heart isn't the problem. Chloe is a sociopathic killer who fooled everyone, including her own mother. That doesn't reflect on your character or your ability to judge people. It reflects on how good she was at lying. But I should have protected you. I should have seen the signs." "You did protect me," I reminded him. "When it mattered most, when you discovered the truth, you chose your family over your wife. You helped me fight back, and you made sure she faced justice. That's what real love looks like." 18 months have passed since that terrible Mother's Day when I almost died from my daughter-in-law's poisoned avocado juice. As I sit here reflecting on everything that happened, I'm amazed at how much our lives have changed and grown from that traumatic experience. Chloe is serving her life sentence in a federal prison 3 states away. She has made no attempt to contact David or her children, and we've heard through her attorney that she spends most of her time writing what she claims is a memoir about how society failed to appreciate her entrepreneurial approach to inheritance planning. Even in prison, she remains convinced that she was the victim of an unfair system that criminalized what she saw as creative problem-solving. Marcus was executed 8 months ago, though he spent his final months trying to negotiate deals by providing information about other similar murder networks operating across the country. His cooperation led to several additional arrests and helped solve cold cases involving suspicious elderly deaths in 12 states. David has rebuilt his life in ways that would have seemed impossible during those dark months. He met Amanda, a widow with teenage children, at a support group for families of crime victims. Their relationship developed slowly and carefully, built on shared understanding of betrayal and loss. They married last spring in a simple ceremony in my backyard, surrounded by people who have proven their trustworthiness through years of genuine friendship. The children have adjusted better than we expected. Children are remarkably resilient when they're surrounded by love and honesty. They call Amanda Mom. Amanda to distinguish her from their birth mother, whom they refer to simply as Chloe when they think about her at all. Patricia has become the grandmother figure she was meant to be, spoiling her grandchildren while helping David navigate single parenthood and eventually blended family life. She volunteers at a local organization that helps families of murder victims, using her own experience to comfort others who are struggling with similar betrayals. As for me, I've discovered a new purpose that gives meaning to my survival. I speak regularly at senior centers, community organizations, and law enforcement training sessions about elder abuse and inheritance fraud. My experience with Chloe has made me an expert on the warning signs that families and medical professionals often miss. The most important thing to remember, I tell audiences, is that evil rarely announces itself. It comes disguised as concern, as helpfulness, as love. The people who want to hurt you will often be the ones offering to help you most. I've helped establish protocols at local banks to identify potentially fraudulent transactions targeting elderly customers. I work with adult protective services to train social workers on recognizing patterns of gradual poisoning that might be mistaken for natural aging. Most importantly, I encourage elderly people to trust their instincts when something feels wrong, even if they can't explain why. The response to my advocacy work has been overwhelming. I receive letters from families across the country who realized their own elderly relatives might have been murdered after hearing my story. Some investigations are reopened, some cases are solved, and some families finally get closure about deaths that never quite made sense. But perhaps the most meaningful part of my new mission is the prevention work. I've personally helped identify 3 potential inheritance fraud schemes in our area before anyone was seriously harmed. There's something deeply satisfying about turning my own victimization into protection for others. My health has fully recovered from the months of poisoning, though I'll always carry some liver damage as a reminder of how close I came to death. I take my vitamins from bottles I personally pick up from the pharmacy. I prepare my own food and coffee. I'm more careful about accepting gifts or help from people I don't know well. Some people might call this paranoia, but I call it wisdom. I learned that vigilance isn't about living in fear. It's about respecting the reality that some people view others as opportunities rather than human beings. The most profound lesson from this experience is about the nature of family itself. Blood relationships and legal bonds don't automatically create love or loyalty. Real family consists of people who choose to protect each other, support each other, and put each other's well-being above their own interests. David chose his mother over his wife when he discovered the truth. Patricia chose to break her silence about her daughter's crimes rather than protect a murderer. Amanda chose to embrace a man whose life had been shattered by betrayal and help him rebuild something beautiful. These choices, not biology or marriage certificates, define who our real family is. I think about Rose, Chloe's grandmother, who died believing her granddaughter loved her. I think about the 13 other victims who trusted people who saw them only as sources of money. I think about how many more people might have died if Patricia hadn't drunk that juice instead of me on Mother's Day. Sometimes the smallest accidents or coincidences can change everything. If Patricia hadn't been thirsty, if she hadn't grabbed my glass, if Chloe hadn't panicked and revealed her guilt, I would be dead, and she would have moved on to her next victim. But instead, I'm alive to watch my grandchildren grow up with a stepmother who genuinely loves them. I'm alive to see David build a marriage based on honesty instead of manipulation. I'm alive to help other families avoid the trap that almost destroyed ours. Most importantly, I've learned that surviving something terrible isn't just about staying alive. It's about refusing to let evil win by stealing your capacity for trust, joy, and love. Chloe tried to poison more than just my body. She tried to poison my relationship with my son, my ability to feel safe in my own home, and my faith in the goodness of people. She failed. Yes, I'm more cautious now. Yes, I pay attention to warning signs I might have missed before, but I haven't become bitter or closed off from new relationships. I haven't let fear dominate my daily life. I've simply learned to balance trust with wisdom, openness with vigilance. The greatest victory over people like Chloe and Marcus is refusing to become like them, refusing to see others as threats or opportunities, instead of human beings worthy of respect and care. Every morning, when I wake up in my own bed, in my own house, surrounded by people who genuinely love me, I'm reminded that good ultimately triumphs over evil when good people choose to fight back. It's not always easy, and it doesn't always happen quickly, but justice and love are stronger than greed and cruelty. That's the lesson I carry forward, and that's the message I hope to share with anyone facing their own battles against those who would exploit or harm them. You are stronger than you know. You deserve better than you're getting. and it's never too late to fight for the life and respect you deserve. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had that gut feeling that something wasn't right with someone close to you, even when you couldn't explain why? Did you trust that instinct, or did you dismiss it to keep peace in your family? Your experiences might help someone else recognize the warning signs before it's too late. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video if my story resonated with you. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming life's challenges, and share this with anyone who might benefit from learning about the realities of elder abuse and family betrayal. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, your safety and well-being matter more than anyone's feelings about your caution. Trust your instincts, protect yourself, and never apologize for putting your own welfare first.